insanely well. I'm almost convinced I want to move out here and do another game. After I write my first screenplay. July 16, 1985. Danny Gorlin took me to his house to show me Earhart, which a year later is now double high-res. He asked for feedback. It had the same problem it did the last time I saw it. Small detailed objects against a black background. It should be cosmic mind-boggling. People should look at it and say, I can't believe I'm seeing this on an Apple Roman 2. But the truth is right now, it doesn't look especially impressive. I said, you've gone the honest, hard to program, hard to represent route at every step. You need to put in some cheap effects so people will notice the expensive ones. I offered a bunch of suggestions. He was listening, but I could tell he really wanted to believe it was almost there, and it could be finished in a month. Danny sunk a lot of time and money into this. I'm worried. Technically, it's a wonder, but the universe he's chosen to represent with this awesome piece of programming is so exotic that I'm afraid people won't respond to it. It's what Gene Port would call an effect in search of a game. July 17, 1985. Gene and I came up with a setting for the new game before lunch. Alibaba Synthped. It's versatile, familiar, visually distinctive, and in the video game field. Hasn't been done to death. Robert told me Steve and I had dinner at Acapulco. The waitress wouldn't believe I was 21. Because my New York learner's permit didn't have a photo on it. You could have written this yourself, she said. So Steve ordered a margarita, then pushed it across the table to me. I was on my third sip when the manager came by and whisked it away from me with a curt thank you. He was so esteemed. Even after that, he had to come back to the table and give us a lecture. What gets me is that they charged us for the drink. July 18, 1985. Driving me to the airport, Domi said, I think you should pursue screenwriting. Go for it. I was surprised and asked her why. She said that Broderland is a really nice, warm, friendly place to work, but for programmers it's actually not that great a deal. The older ones, like Chris and David, are starting to get scared because programming's the only marketable skill they have, and it's a young man's game. The new crop of kids coming up are willing to work harder and cheaper, and don't have girlfriends or families yet to cut into their working hours. And nobody knows how long the games market will be around, or what it'll be like next year. I never would have thought of it quite like that. August 28, 1985. Chappaqua, one of those rainy late summer days. Woke up at 11:30. Drove Mom into town and back. Finished that letter to Ed Bernstein at Broderbund. I needed to come up with some kind of storyline, so I just wrote something off the top of my head. I sealed the letter and mailed it. Then a strange thing happened. I started getting images in my head of the characters. The Sultan, the princess, the boy. I saw the scenes in my mind as if it were a Disney movie, so I wrote up a scenario, churned it out in an hour. It came out pretty well, I think. It's just similar enough to Karetka, but more plausible, more intricate, and most important, more humorous. Gene will love it. Maybe the backstory could even be written up and illustrated, like a comic book, and published with the game. My night thoughts lately have been along the lines of, do I have it in me to do another computer game? Is this what I want to do? Can I do it? What if the code-writing part of my brain has atrophied? Will I fail ignominiously? Should I just turn to screenwriting full-time? The day made me feel better. August 30, 1985. Another good day on the game. Screenplay? What screenplay? I'm getting to the point where I want to rush out and buy a video camera, a VCR and a digitizer and get to work. Atari Karetka arrived at X. It looks great, sounds awful, bad, and I spent the day troubleshooting the music. It should be okay, but nowhere near Commodore quality. I'm unutterably happy that I'm getting psyched up for this new game. It fills me with joy and confidence in the future. Then again, maybe feeling good doesn't necessarily mean that what I write is good. Maybe the best stuff is produced out of blackest despair, or maybe not. September 24, 1985. I passed my driving test despite hitting the curb while parallel parking, failing to check the rear view mirror, stopping at a green light, and having trouble getting the key out of the ignition. So now I've got a driver's license. Scary, isn't it? Got a letter from Ed. He waxed enthusiastic about the new game and proposed they fly me out to discuss terms as soon as it's convenient. How cool is that? Sorry, Mom, Dad can't make dinner. Got a flight out to California for the weekend. Business. You know how it is. September 25, 1985. The Diners, Club VCR, and video camera arrived. It's scary to have $2,500 worth of equipment I don't own and can't afford. David and I, mostly David, spent the day fooling around with it. It's a fantastic piece of technology, but I'll breathe it easier when it's out of the house. I feel so dishonest. October 2, 1985. Last night I was kept awake by anxiety about the new game. All the detail I'm going to have to put in it just seems so daunting. How did I do it for Karetka? I can't remember. I'm not sure I can do it again. The doubt is still there in the back of my mind. It talks to me from time to time. Jordan, it says, what are you doing? You're taking a step backward. You want to be a filmmaker. It's time to move on. You bought the Apple computer. Came in front of your life to its climax a year ago. You caught the industry just before it started to die. Before you started to lose interest in games yourself. Now you want to do just one more game. Why? Timidity, fear of breaking loose. You'll waste a year, man, if you're going to try for Hollywood. Now is the time. Shut up, I say, and doubt grumbles and crawls for the moment back into its hole. October 17, 1985. I bought to videotape David this weekend because I have to return the camera by Tuesday. Problems with using David as a model. At the time, I figure out what additional footage I need. He'll be 3,000 miles away and probably several inches taller. Ed Bernstein called back. I get the feeling I'm supposed to make you an offer, he said. Why don't you make me a counter-offer? I wondered how you can make a counter-offer when there's been no offer to begin with. But I said, no advance, no salary, and a 20% royalty. That would be my ideal. He came right back with my ideal would be no advance, no salary, and a 15% royalty. I hate negotiating with people I like. My impulse is to be nice. I don't want them to think I'm greedy. On the other hand, I want as much money as I can get. This morning I sat in the sun and reread my side of the mountain. It got me thinking about how far removed from nature my life is. Staring at a computer screen all day, fast food, fluorescent lights. I'm only 21. My eyes should be bluish-white. Instead they're bloodshot. The end to wander is still in me. It's not dead. Thanks, St. George. October 20, 1985. Videotaped David running and jumping in the Reader's Digest parking lot. It'll do for a start. Negotiating. October 23, 1985. Ed said there was no way he could go above 15%. I said okay. I'll draft a contract and send it. March 13, 1986. I have to get out of here. This isn't even half a life. It's like living under house arrest. Moving to California is no longer a career move, it's an escape hatch. March 20, 1986. This negotiation with Broderbund has dragged on so long and gotten so frustrating. It's pretty much cured me of any lingering sentimental feelings of being part of the Broderbund family. I still feel affection for Doug and Gary. But the reality is it's a corporation. To the people I'm actually dealing with, it's just business. Mom just showed me an article in Venture magazine about how Electronic Arts gave Timothy Leary the $100,000 advance for his new game. Why am I still talking to Broderland? March 28, 1986. Bill McDonough called to tell me the Carrot Cat has sold 250,000 units in its first month of release in Japan. April 15, 1986. Got a new contract draft from Broderbund. They're still offering $0 advance, but I think it'll be okay. April 29, 1986. The digitizer arrived. I fired it up and quickly determined that the tape I shot in October is useless. Basically, the digitizer recognizes two shades, black and white. Background needs to be dark enough to be perceived as black even when the brightness is turned up high enough to make David's arms and face and feet visible. Second, it can't reduce or enlarge. Maybe if I paint his skin white and give him a white turban and shoot it against a black wall. I still think this can work. The key is not to clean up the frames too much. The figure will be tiny and messy and look like crap. But I have faith that when the frames are run in sequence at 15 fps, it'll create an illusion of life that's more amazing than anything that's ever been seen on an Apple Roman 2 screen. The little guy will be wiggling and jittering like a Ralph back. She rotoscope job, but he'll be alive. He'll be this little shimmering beacon of life in the static Apple graphics Persian world I'll build for him to run around in. April 30, 1986. Spent the day getting Dre to pack and unpack, load and save. Another couple of days, and it'll be doing everything Trax should have done all along. This is the utility I should have had for Karatka. It seems like a lot of work now, but it'll pay for itself many times over when it comes time to cut out all those frames and put them in order. May 17, 1986. I think the best way to do the digitizing for the game may be to shoot it in Super 8. Put it on the Movila, then train the video camera on the screen and feed it directly into the digitizer. That'd result in a cleaner picture, eliminate the freeze, frame noise. Also, I could manipulate image size by zooming in and out. One disadvantage is the hassle of getting Super 8 film developed, and I need a movie camera as well as a video camera. How's this? I have a video camera now, shoot on video the best I can, digitize it, noise and all, and use it as a dry run placeholder while I program the rest of the game. Then shoot the final stuff on Super 8 once I have a clearer idea of what I need. July 7, 1986. Got a call from a Detisov at Broderbund. I understand you want to come out here, he said. I explained. I figure it'll take me a year to do the game, so what I'd like to do is relocate to the Bay Area. If I could stay with someone for the first couple of weeks until I find an apartment, that'd be a big help. He asked if the project was a sequel to Karatka. When I told him it wasn't, his enthusiasm dimmed noticeably. I felt like I was talking to a studio executive. July 25, 1986. Moving 3,000 miles away on the strength of nothing more than a vague idea. An Arabian Nights type game. Feels kind of scary and appealing. July 31, 1986. Just looked at the final version of Karatka. It seemed okay, I guessed, except for overall sluggishness, frequent disk accesses, and a few minor graphics glitches. Then I booted up the Apple version to compare, and it was so smooth it made me want to cry. The PC version is maybe 50% of what it should be. I can't even tell these guys what to fix. It's a million little things, and they're just not up to the hassle. That kind of attention to detail is why the Apple version took me 2 years. This version is probably the best I'll ever get out of them. Oddly enough, this makes me more psyched to do the new game. It reminded me why I'm good at this, or what I can do that others can't or won't. August 1, 1986. Ed sent sketches of someone's ideas for Karatka Roman 2. Jeeves, presumably. I wasn't too enthused at first, but now it occurs to me there is a way that this could work. If I get actively involved in the game design, make up a storyline, draw up sketches, brainstorm with Gene, etc., and stay on in a kind of supervisory capacity while turning the programming over to Steve Omert. That'll let me keep some control over the project's development and also justify asking for a higher royalty rate than if I weren't involved at all. It makes sense. They can't very well turn me down. I own the copyright to Karatka, so there's no sequel unless I agree to it. August 2, 1986. I told Ed Batisov I'd like to design Karatka Roman 2 for them. He said, we already have 2 designers, Gene and Laura. We don't need a third. After all, designing it is something that basically anyone can do. As for royalty, he offered 3%, 1/5 of the original rate, and seemed to think that is basically a gift, and they're doing me a huge favor. He went so far as to point out that they could release Karatka Roman 2 under a different title and pay me nothing, and word would get around that it was in fact an unofficial sequel to Karatka, so they'd still benefit from Karatka's success without having to pay me a royalty. I'm proud of myself for not having lost my temper. Dad advised me to hold out for 15%, the same as on Karatka. I'd be happy with 10%, which is what Ducksmith got on Championship Load Runner, but I don't think they'll give that much. September 3, 1986. It's official. I'm going to California. I have a plane ticket and everything. Actually, Ed said, I was expecting you today. My life is about to change. California, September 10, 1986. San Francisco, I thought you were the pizza man, Tommy said, when she opened the door to the Baker Street apartment and saw me there at the top of the steep steps with my 2 bags. Now I'm reclining in luxury in one of their new armchairs, listening to Moisio Polini play Chopin preludes on their new CD player. There's a stunning view of San Francisco Bay out the windows that makes my stomach contract every time I look at it. Did I mention that I'm scared? Getting a ride to work this morning with Tommy, pulling into the Broderbund parking lot, that was scary. Now that the day's over and it's cleared, I had nothing to be scared of. I'm not scared anymore. I'm terrified. I'm scared shitless. I have to rent a car. I have to drive it on these insane 12-lane racetracks they call freeways. I have to find an apartment and rent it. I have to move in. I have to buy a car. I have to buy insurance. I'd never done any of this stuff before. And now I have to do it all at once. I'm on top of this, or rather, at the bottom of it. I have to make a computer game. It's gonna be fun. September 11, 1986. Visited Danny Gorlin. He sunk more money into developing the development system to end all development systems. Saw the final version of Earhart. It's got some staggering special effects, and it's no fun at all to play. Danny thinks spending $1 million on a development system will give him an edge. He might be right, but the best Apple games have been developed on a plain Apple Roman II with 2 disk drives. Lucasfilm spent $1 million to make Rescue on Fractalis and Ball Blazer, and those games aren't significantly better than or different from the competition. The real strides forward, Master Blast or Troubleshooter, What the Hell Carica, were the work of solo programmers with no special resources. Maybe Danny is leading game design into the 21st century. Maybe he's just flushing money down the toilet. I'll stick with my Apple Roman II. September 11, 1986. Met with Gene, Lauren, and Ed Batasov and showed them my Big Dad ideas. Ed B made up the working title Prince of Persia. The storyline didn't impress them much, but I think they saw promise in it. It doesn't really matter a whole lot what they think, and the one that has to do it. But it sure as hell wouldn't hurt to have them enthusiastic. In a few months I should have something to thrill them. I'm starting to get psyched to write this game. Slowly. September 12, 1986. Apartment hunting with Steve Patrick. We checked out one place with a pink carpet, dusty chandeliers, and an old lady landlord who said she doesn't like renting to kids. They make a lot of noise, she said. They invite their friends over. Not me, I said. I just got off the plane from New York. I don't have any friends. Oh, you will, she said ominously, sounding like Yoda in Empire. You will. Steve and Tommy told me I can stay with them until they kick me out. You should live in the Marina District, Duke advised. You'd meet a lot of paws yuppies. September 18, 1986. Looked at a house in Mill Valley, on a shady road winding through the redwoods. When I rang the doorbell, the lady peered around me and said, "Is your mother down there?" She spent 15 minutes showing me the house, but I don't think I ever quite convinced her I was serious. September 23, 1986. Spent much of today working on the logistical problem of how to get the footage from audio estate into the computer. I finally tentatively settled on photographing the frames, one by one with a regular 35mm camera, getting prints made, and after retouching as needed, digitizing the prints with a regular Sony video camera. It sounds like a pain, but I think it's the best way. September 25, 1986. Another solid workday. Today I stayed till around 7 and got it pretty much finished. I tested it out by digitizing a page out of my bridge. It'll do what I need it to do. It could use another day of work. Actually, I could keep working on it for a month if I didn't have so much else to do. September 26, 1986. Ed Bernstein called his last PD meeting this afternoon. He's leaving to head up Rotorman's fledgling board games division. Doug himself will be taking over as acting head of PD. He'll be taking my desk. The better to stay in touch with the people. So I'll be moving into Ed's office. Life is strange. PD is throwing Ed a goodbye party. Better the devil we know than the deep blue sea, Steve said. At lunch, Doug said, "You seem to have a very strong entrepreneurial bent." I was surprised and said something about how I'd probably inherited it from my father. Coming out here was definitely the right thing to do. In Chappaqua, I was in a rut. Now I'm in the thick of it. It's great. September 27, 1986. I have a car. September 28, 1986. I have an apartment. September 29, 1986. Today, I moved into Ed's office. Obviously, this is a temporary arrangement. Eventually, some new guy will be hired to run PD, and I'll get booted to some other part of the building. But while it lasts, it's great. Besides vast amounts of space, a couple of armchairs for visitors, my own phone, and a door that I can close, the office has the most important thing of all, equipment. A printer, an amber screen, an Apple earache. It didn't occur to me until I was actually confronted with 2 Apple Roman II on my desk, and I had to figure out what to do with the extra one. But it's perfect. Now I can run programs without destroying the source code in memory. It's called the development system. October 14, 1986. David Sten read my screenplay. He said it has promise, but would need at least one more rewrite to be saleable. Perhaps sensing my disappointment, he said, "Look, it's great for a first script. It really is. I wouldn't show you my first screenplay. You obviously have talent. You should stick with it." He was more impressed with the reviews of Carrot I'd sent him. "You're in the right business," he said. "What do you want to get into this one for?" October 15, 1986. Bought the camera, a whole earth. It was more expensive than I'd anticipated. Only $250 with the lens, but it's a good camera. and I imagine I'll find some use for it even after the game's done. I shot my first roll of film David turning around and had it developed at the local 1-hour photo stop. I think this will work. The real problem, obviously, will be going from a sheaf of snapshots to the 280 x 192 Apple screen, and the loss of accuracy entailed therein. It almost makes me want to do it in double high-res. October 1986. Shot 4 more rolls of film. David running and jumping in the Reader's Digest parking lot. 1 year ago tomorrow. Red and orange leaves. God, I'm homesick. October 21, 1986. Today, I wrote the first lines of code of the game, not counting the high-res routines. It begins. October 23, 1986. Everyone in the office has been playing a lot of Tetris. A Russian submission for the ID MPC. It's a classic like Breakout, but I don't think Broder is going to publish it. And Knaves. October 25, 1986. Yesterday, I implemented the running animation. Next, I'll do the jumping, then the stopping, then the jumping from a stopped position. Oh boy, this is great. I restrained myself from taking all my work papers home with me yesterday, and I'm restraining myself from going to work today. There must be balance. October 31, 1986. Ed was pretty thrilled with the rough running and jumping animation, now under joystick control. So was Tony. Lauren, Doug, and Gary didn't act all excited, but I think they were secretly impressed. I love the quality of the chess digitized roughs, but I'm having trouble preserving that fluidity and realism when I clean it up and stylize the figures. This is going to be a problem. I beat out Ed and Steve at #1 spot on the Tetris high score list. The Mets won the World Series. November 9, 1986. God, I miss New York. Fifth Avenue Christmas shoppers. Rich ladies in furs laden with shopping bags and kids. Crisp, cold autumn air. The smell of burnt pretzels and heaters. The steel drum players wearing woolen gloves with cut-off fingers. Breath condensing on the air. I'm looking out the window at the San Francisco skyline across the bay dotted with white sails. It looks unreal, like some kind of paradise. November 10, 1986. Called Kyle Freeman in LA. He's at Electronic Arts now and asked him what he'd charge to license his Apple Music subroutine. He spent half the phone call dumping on Broderbund. I realized after I'd hung up that this was the first thing I'd done independent of Broderbund since I got here. Interestingly, it actually strengthened my confidence that Broderbund is the right place for me. It reminded me that I am independent. November 18, 1986. Digitized the running skiing turnaround that was so amusing on videotape. It looks okay. I'll need to redo the straight running, but I think everything else will work as it stands. About half the animations are in now. Next step will be getting the character to interact with the environment, climbing a rope ladder, pulling a lever, etc. At this juncture, I think I'll redirect my attention to the game design. December 2, 1986. Spent most of the day trying to figure out the velocity of a falling human being as a function of time. Enlisted practically everyone at Broderbund at one point or another. They all seemed to find this a more interesting problem than whatever they were working on. December 24, 1986. Home for the holidays. It's good to be back. Not much has changed except that David has taken over my room. We played a game of Go. He's 7 stones stronger. He's at Mario's with David and his friend Andy. We pumped about $6 into a 3-player game called Gauntlet, which has pretty good graphics and a great appetite for quarters. People tend to be pretty bowled over by the animation test I've been showing them. Don't you realize what you're looking at? John Minnell said, "This is a light bulb." January 11, 1987. Macworld Expo 86 was pretty slick. The coolest thing there was the Radius AX11 tall screen. Dad called all excited because David did well in the Dan tournament. I hadn't stopped to think about it until now, but the speed of his rise has been really startling. From total beginner to shonen in 9 months. If he keeps this up another year or two, he could be one of the best non-Asian Go players in the history of the world. That's something. January 22, 1987. The Nintendo game machine has sold 1 million units in the US over Christmas. As of now, only a handful of cartridges are available. Nintendo is keeping a tight rein on new titles, presumably to avoid a flood of product like the one that sunk Atari a couple of years ago. Broderbund, thanks to Doug's Japan connections, as 3 of the coveted slots. Karateka would be unnatural, but Doug is apparently leaning toward choosing some older titles. Castles of Dr. Creep or Spelunker, or Raid on Bundling Bay, or even Choplifter instead. I talked to Ed and Ellen with great passion, trying to convince them. This is the first time in my life I've had to lobby so hard for something I desperately wanted. And it's exquisitely frustrating. It's so painful wanting something from someone, being reduced to wishing and hoping they'll give it to me. I hate it. If I'm going to be a screenwriter someday, guess I'd better get used to it. January 23, 1987. Progress on Prince of Persia has slowed to a snail's crawl. I've been drifting into work around 11 or 12, and between that, the butchery and the sport court. My work date is about 45 minutes long. Ed and Jean and Lauren keep checking in to see what new and exciting stuff I've got up on the screen, and they go away disappointed. Instead, I've been spending my time playing with my new Mac, Radius screen, and Scripter screenplay formatting software. Shiny new toys. January 26, 1987. Got up early for a change and put in a full day's work on the game. Corey talked me into switching assemblers, operating systems, and disk media from DOS 3.3. C assembler and 5.1 or floppies to ProDOS, rolling, and SCSI hard drive. The change should take about a week, but I think it'll pay for itself in the end. January 29, 1987. Roland spent the whole morning helping me switch over to Merlin and ProDOS. It was kind of a thrill to watch. Roland is a hacker of the old school. He's polite and unprepossessing in his dress and demeanor, careful about money and contracts. He drives a Saab with license plate Snabil, but under that conservative surface is a demon. Guy who will put his day job on hold for 72 hours and sit down and reverse engineer an Apple Roman 2 conversion of Tetris, just for the pleasure of it. Watching him do what he did for me today, I felt a little of the old joy come flying back. I'd almost forgotten the most basic thing. Programming is fun. I've grown middle-aged these past couple of years. Roland is 23, but he's still young at heart. January 31, 1987. Got to Rotor under around 8:30 and put in another solid 8 hours. Converted Builder over to Merlin Pro, but it's not working. Give me another day or two to get all the bugs out. Showed at the latest John 27 working version. He was gratifyingly thrilled about the free e-box with scrolling borders. February 9, 1987. When do you think you'll be finished with your game? Lauren asked me on the way back from the butchery. I'm shooting for August, I said. We agreed the important thing is to make it as good as possible, and that a few months earlier or later wouldn't really make much difference. Today, for the first time, I constructed a really large level and played around in it. It was the first time this game had ever given me the feeling of space. It was kind of thrilling. I think it's going to be a winner. I'm going slowly this time, building on a solid foundation, and I think it'll pay off big. February 14, 1987. It's great having David here. All the stuff I'd gotten jaded about suddenly seems cool when seen through my little brother's eyes, like having a car, being able to drive anywhere I want, a place of my own, key to Broder, and free video games in the lunchroom, stuff like that. I'll miss him when he's gone. February 16, 1987. Rented a camcorder and spent the afternoon in and around Broder Fund shooting more footage of David for the game. There were lots of people there even though it was a holiday. March 5, 1987. Powers that be at Broder Fund have decreed that since they told me Steve, Loring, Eric, Mike, and Robert S., David, Snyder, Corey, and I are all to be packed off from our present comfortable offices to a rat hole on the second floor of 47 Paul. Tommy, Corey, and I went there yesterday to check the place out. I'm seriously considering working from home. The vibe at work has been kind of odd lately anyway. Doug is wrapped up in taking the company public, and the new people he's hiring have no interest in games, or in software, for that matter. There's really no reason for me to go into the office anymore, except for camaraderie. I could always visit if I get lonely. March 8, 1987. This is a BAT day for you not to be at Broder, and believe me. Bye. Not the message you want to find on your answering machine when you get home at 5 p.m. after having taken the day off to play hooky and explore MT. Tam, I called Corey back. He told me we'd been evicted from our office and our stuff transferred to the dingy and painted windowless attic of 47 Paul Drive. Corey was at the bottom of the deepest depression I'd ever seen him and was ready to move back home. Tony had a plan. You've got to get the small room, she said. It's got windows and ventilation. It'll be much better. Corey said he already asked Dare about that, and she said, possession is 9/10 of the law. If I were you, I'd go into work early tomorrow morning and move both your desks and all your stuff into that room. I called Corey back and told him the plan. He was terrified, but we did it that night, feeling like a pair of burglars. March 9, 1987. I arrived at work to find Adair furious. It seems they'd been planning to paint the room that day, and Corey and I, by moving in our furniture, had made it impossible for the painters to work, so we moved it all into the middle of the room and threw a tarp over it. We had to buy the tarp ourselves at the local hardware store, because the painters didn't have one. The attic. April 1, 1987. In the past 3 weeks, I've put in the equivalent of maybe one full 8-hour day on like that. I'm starting to feel guilty about it. My reluctance to actually sit down in the new office and work on the damn game is so strong. I've been procrastinating by doing everything else under the sun I've been putting off since 1986. Even my taxes. April 2, 1987. It's probably a good thing I didn't get into work until 3. Because sometime early this morning they had a little accident at the Fairchild plant next door to Broderpan and spilled some hydrochloric acid. They evacuated the whole industrial park for a few hours. They were going to shut down the freeway, but luckily the wind was blowing in the other direction. Ours. My lungs actually do feel kind of irritated. April 23, 1987. Sensei moved in yesterday. 6 desks, Eric. Loring, tell me Steve, Mike, and Ty now occupy the big outer room. Overnight, the place has been transformed from an attic into an office. Seeing it gave me this incredible urge to tidy up the small room, the one Corey, Catherine Mataga, and I share. But I stifled it. Instead, I put in my first real day of work in weeks, and maybe my second since Corey and I got kicked out of our old office. May 3, 1987. I'm back in work mode. Whatever the reasons, the long dry spell that began with Corey's and my exile to the attic ended the day Sensei moved in with us. I got a hell of a lot done this week. And I'm actually starting to look forward to arriving at work every morning, sitting down at the apple to make things happen. May 4, 1987. Big news. Virginia Duritlian of Leading Artists called to say she loved my script. She's given it to her boss Jim Burgess to read, and will get back to me in the next couple of days. May 5, 1987. Jim in Virginia called back the next morning. He'd read Birthstone, loved it, and asked if I have other movie ideas and if I'm available for rewrite work, so I'm flying to LA on Monday for a meeting with leading artists. This is ridiculous dreams. Country stuff. If I saw it in a movie, I would never buy it. May 11, 1987. Sat in a big room with leather couches with Virginia, 2 of the partners, Jim Burkus and Gary Kose, and another agent, Andel Laird. They're just guys. Only coached me before I flew down. Pretend you're going into a meeting with Doug and Gene Portwood. They all listened in attentive silence while I pitched my high school Mark script idea. Finally Jim Burkus broke in gently. That's a good idea, he said. But whereupon they all informed me that there are about 3 feature films involving undercover cops in high school already in development, plus a TV series called 21 Jump Street, which I would have known if I ever watched TV or looked at a TV guide. I felt like an idiot. Awkward moment. The meeting broke up soon after. They still want to take me on as a client, though. Try to think of some other movie ideas, Virginia suggested. She gave me about 9 scripts to take home Xerox and send back to her. Screenplays of films, actually, in production. She also let me pore through her red book for a couple of hours while she went to lunch with a guy from Norway. It was terrific. Exciting. The Red Book contained a capsule description of every feature film currently in development anywhere, with notations like status, needs director or needs major star or needs script. The descriptions were like Alien Underwater or a remake of the hit, only funnier. Bizarre. May 22, 1987. Virginia called me at work to say that Curtis Hanson, writer, director of The Bedroom Window, had read the script and wants to talk to me about it. I called him at home. I've been reading a lot of thrillers lately, he said, obviously because of Bedroom Window. Most of them are boring and bad. Yours was interesting and unusual. I had some ideas on how you might improve it. We talked for an hour. Don Daglow, who just came over from Electronic Arts, wants Broderpan to do character Roman too. We sat in his office and chatted while Ed Batasov sat there, eyes darting nervously back and forth between us. Don offered a 3% royalty. They both wanted me to say yes. I didn't. June 10, 1987. I told Virginia my Anasazi and Secret Society movie ideas. I think she was sort of bemused that they were so incomplete. She said of 14 Rodley is a hard sell, and anything to do with Indians is a hard sell. I have faith that you'll work these into something good, she said. But it would be good if you could do that within the next week or so. June 22, 1987. I finished the rewrite and sent it to Virginia and Curtis Hanson this morning. Virginia says she showed the first draft to a lot of people and everybody is all excited. The word genius has been thrown around, she said. In what context? I wonder. Who's the genius who made me waste my time reading this Heshler Cash crap? But the big news is that Larry Terman, big-name producer of The Graduate, more recently, Short Circuit wants to make Birthstone. We talked for about an hour Saturday about the changes he'd like to see. He's going to Europe for 3 weeks. I told him I'd do another rewrite while he's away, and we can talk when he gets back. Virginia apologized for not getting me any money to do the rewrites. I told her not to worry. I don't feel like I'm being exploited. The way I see it, I'm getting the benefit of these guys' talent and experience for free. And even if nothing happens, I end up with a better script for my trouble. There was a long pause, then she said, I think you're going to do very well here. July 1, 1987. Curtis Hanson called back. He liked the rewrite and wants to attach himself to the project. July 8, 1987. I told Virginia I'm no good at pitching and would rather write The Secret Society idea as a spec screenplay. She said that in that case it might be a good idea for me to go into these meetings and talk about kinds of movies I like, so you don't appear tongue-tied. Oliver North is testifying on TV as a sort of running background to everything. Game? What game? July 9, 1987. Working at home is not working out. I need to find a way to start splitting my time between screenwriting and the game. It would be ideal if I could finish the game, achieve some kind of closure on that before I move to LA and devote myself 100% to screenwriting. July 29, 1987. A day of meetings set up by Virginia. One was with Hal Lieberman at Disney. Just being on the Disney lot was quite a thrill. August 25, 1987. Gary Cusick called to tell me that Virginia is leaving the agency. I need to sit down and think about this. Had lunch Tuesday with Ed Badasoff. I told him I'll be done with the screenplay rewrite in a month, and we can sit down and work out a new timetable for Prince of Persia. Ed tried to talk me into staying with video games as a career. He said I have an extraordinary talent and ability possessed by only a few people to actually conceive, design, and execute a game all by myself. I felt like he was talking about somebody else. All I could do was stare at him and nod politely. I have no idea what will happen now with Prince of Persia. Maybe I can hire someone else to finish it or sell it to Broder, but as it stands as a work in progress, I can't think about it. I'll think about it a month from now, September 4, 1987. Gary Cosay encouraged me to write my Secret Society script on spec if I have the inclination and the financial freedom to do so. You're in a good position right now, he said, and that Larry Terman is waiting for a script from you that stands a very good chance of going. If this movie gets made, whatever you write next will automatically have a lot of interest and potentially be worth a lot of money. He also said if you write a couple more scripts on spec, and if they're good, you'll be in a position to do more than just write. You're carving out a road for yourself. You can drive your car down at any time you want. I want Birthstone to get made so bad. I can't let myself think about it. September 21, 1987. Lunch at the Skywalker Ranch with Mary Ann Braba and Steve Arnold. George Lucas himself came over and sat down, and Steve introduced us. I just had to enter this momentous event in the record for the sake of my 18-year-old self. Steve Arnold, for some reason, is dying to hire me. For what? I have no idea. He asked me what I know about interactive video. I said, absolutely nothing. He said if I don't want a job, he'd be willing to hire me as a consultant or as a freelancer, basically, on whatever basis I want. Oh well, enough excitement. Back to work. September 24, 1987. Virginia said Gary is sweet and one of the best minds in the agency business in Hollywood, but he can be easily talked in and out of things, and he doesn't like to fight, so it'll always be Jim who calls the shots. She thinks Jim will probably try to frustrate Larry off the project so he can replace him with one of his boys' club buddies. My new agent will be Toby Jeff. October 1, 1987. Gary loved the rewrite. Larry's response was more mixed. Curtis said straight out he was disappointed. October 5, 1987. Don Nagel said, when are you going to leave F. Scott Fitzgerald emulation mode and finish Prince of Persia so we can publish it? Whereupon Gary Carlson said, I take a more low-key approach based on the possibility that Scott Fitzgerald mode might actually work out. Broderbund is really hurting for dames. Last night Gary and Doug and Bill McDonough were talking about their quarter sales. Doug turned to me and asked, "Can you have it ready by tomorrow?" October 19, 1987. Larry Terman called. He did really good work. I think it's the absolute best yet. He still has a few suggestions, but he wants to go ahead with this version. He asked one curious question: "Is leading artist your official agent? Have you signed contracts with them?" I told him I had. "Congratulations," he said. "We'll go out into the world." The stock market crashed. A 500-point drop in one day. October 20, 1987. Larry called me to find out what's going on. He hasn't heard from my agents or anyone and is getting antsy. Is Curtis in or out? I didn't know what to tell him. October 30, 1987. Curtis is out. No hard feelings. November 17, 1987. My long-postponed lunch with Ed Badasov. I leveled with him. I told him everything that's been happening with the screenplay, and Tommy's suggestion asked for his advice. Ed thought about it gravely, admitted he could see my dilemma. We left it that I'll try coming in a few days a week and see how much I can get done. Basically, I've done no work on POP for 6 months. November 18, 1987. The Yale Alumni magazine came in today's mail. The class of '85 notes had an entire paragraph about Yale's in film. David Kipen is living in LA writing a screenplay about Yale, the themes of which are suicide and murder. Andy Silver is going to USC Film School. David Lee is shooting a movie in New York. Bob Simmons is doing deals in Hollywood. These are my classmates. How come I'm not with them? What am I doing in an industrial park in Northern California hanging out with people in their 30s? Okay, I'm calm now. Phew. November 20, 1987. Yesterday, I went into work for the first time since I can't remember when. I booted up the game and looked at it. It was deeply depressing. Think of the game as an old car you're fixing up in your spare time, Helmy suggested, urging me to resume work on it. This old car has an engine block that's rusted solid. I can't even think about how much work lies ahead. November 24, 1987. John Avildsen read the script and declined. Larry is still waiting to hear from John Borman, Michael Apted, Michael Ritchie, and Peter Yates. But something tells me he's pinning his hopes on dark horse Thomas Carter, director of the Miami Vice season pilot, and doesn't really expect any of these big names to say yes. It all feels pretty remote to me now. January 7, 1988. On impulse, more to escape cabin fever than anything else, I drove into Broder and actually put in a full day of work oiling the gears that have rusted in place inside my head. I was startled to realize that the most recent code printouts in my folder are dated March 26, 1987. In essence, I stopped working on the game the day I got the call from Virginia Jurillian 8 months ago. What the hell have I been doing for 8 months? Restarting. January 12, 1988. I'm back in work mode. For a solid week now, I've been going into Broder in the mornings and coming home late at night, happy and tired. It's hard to overstate the transformation this has wrought in my attitude toward life, the universe, and everything. A week ago, I'd pretty much given up on the game. I'd only had to take the final step, a formality really, of informing Ed that the project was dead. Now Ed's overjoyed. At dinner last night, he was grinning from ear to ear. Even Robert Cook is impressed with my renewed dedication. People at Broder have been greeting me enthusiastically and asking, "Where have you been?" And when I tell them about Hollywood, they get all excited. A week ago, I was an aspiring screenwriter. Now, I'm a working computer game designer with an ace up my sleeve. It's daunting to contemplate the vast amount of work that lies ahead. It'll be 6 months before the game is close to code ready, but I'm getting excited. January 13, 1988. My agent Toby Jaff called me at work and asked, "So, how's the screenplay going? Writing away?" "Yep," I said, recompiling a source file as we talked. January 21, 1988. 2 more turn-downs from Michael Apted and Bob Swain. Swain told Larry he enjoyed the script, would have jumped at it had it come along before his last movie, but he's now looking for a love story. These phone calls from Larry are my only link to the movie industry that LA to that whole set of aspirations. Sometimes it's hard to remember that the script exists, that I wrote it, that dozens of Xerox copies of it are circulating and getting read by people. It doesn't seem real. February 4, 1988. Prince of Persia is looking good. The kid now runs, jumps, swings, and falls like a pro. When he steps on the pressure plates, the gates go up and down the way they're supposed to. The project's back on track. The only problem is I've been working such long hours. I can't remember the last time I did anything fun outside work, or even went to the movies. My budding screenwriting career is a distant memory. As says my mono is getting there. but I shouldn't be discouraged if it's another 6 months before I'm 100%. And in the meantime, I should take care to avoid getting overtired or chilled. 6 months. February 28, 1988. I shipped Mom my 512K Mac. She upgraded it to a Plus, and now she's happily learning how to use it. Dad wants me to move out of San Francisco. He's worried about earthquakes. March 1, 1988. M passed. Michael Creighton passed. On deck, Roger Spottiswoode, Henry Winkler, John Borman. March 25, 1988. Larry called to say Peter Yates has passed. Now that all the top guys have said no, we go down a notch. Andy Bad Dreams, Fleming's agent, Eric Rosenberg, liked the script and wants to meet me. The top guys were all very positive, Larry said. Keep your spirits up. April 21, 1988. My Apple Roman 2 hard drive arrived today, about a year after I got Ed to agree to order me one. And with some help from Robert, I got my entire development system converted over. It'll save me endless hassles. It's the most exciting hardware event in years. May 31, 1988. Janice Kim gave me some advice. You should just let go. Take a trip where you don't have your return ticket booked ahead of time. I agreed, but explained that I needed to conquer the world first. She said, you'll still be saying that when you're 60. Janice was fascinated by the way things seemed to work out for me. I mean, if I thought of writing a computer game, I'd just assume it would be terrible and nobody would want to buy it, so I wouldn't do it. I pointed out that at 18, she's the first woman go professional in the U.S., but she didn't seem to feel there was much to write home about. David is going to Japan for the next 2 or 3 years, or however long it takes him to turn pro. June 8, 1988. Shadow Man. Credit Tommy with this one. I was explaining to her why there are no enemies in Prince of Persia. The animations for the player's character are so elaborate. There's not enough memory left to add another character. Why not use the same animations for your enemies, the way you did in Karateka? Wouldn't work so well this time. This character is designed to look cute. He has a very specific personality in the way he runs and moves. The enemies would have to be cute too. Can't you just change the face or the costume? Not possible. If I change anything, it's a whole new set of shapes. There's just no memory. She wouldn't give up. Couldn't you make him a different color? Say black? I started to explain. This is the Apple Roman 2, and then it hit me. What if I exclusive, or each frame with itself bit, shifted 1 pixel over? I visualized a ghostly, shimmering outline figure black, with white face and arms running and leaping, pursuing you. I described it to Tommy. Shadow Man, she exclaimed. Tommy, Robert, and Eric all huddled around my screen while I paged through my source code. Me, but you don't actually have to watch me do this. It might take a while. Eric, no, we want to. It's a test. In about 2 minutes, I had Shadow Man up and running. He looked great. It was as if he always existed. Everybody was wired. How could I have